Hello, my name is Lori Schmidt, the Wolf Curator at the International Wolf Center. I'd like to welcome you to the Wolf Care webinar entitled Cultural View of Wolves. And we certainly do have some sleepy wolves. Some people have been commenting about, what's up with our wolves and why are they so sleepy. We are at 54 degrees here right now. So if you're a wolf, 54 degrees is quite warm when you have your winter coat. We also just finished with a work crew. The Outward Bound students were here helping with some gravel hauling, working on pond drain, hauling some hazard dead material that's adjacent to the enclosure. It's also adjacent to an electrical area, so we wanted to make sure that we got that out of the way. And so that means that the wolves have been active most of the afternoon, kind of keeping an eye on the students, on the ATVs, on certainly quite a few different things going on. So that's why they're down and rested. Abby Keller, the lead program wolf specialist, will be joining us. She's going to be answering questions in the Q&A. Just as a reminder, if you have questions, you can type them in the Q&A and Abby will try to answer some on the fly. Otherwise, if we need to be able to interrupt the program and be able to address something that's going on with the wolves, we can certainly do that. If you want to just have general comments, you can put those in the chat so that everybody can see them. If you have comments that you don't necessarily need an answer, just wanted to share with everyone, that would be great. So thanks for joining us. Again, it's the 10th of October. So if you're familiar with the 10th of October and what that means to us, the of Indigenous Peoples Day here in Minnesota. And so we want to share again a couple of thoughts about culture. And again, culture with wolves is what our primary focus is here tonight, but we'll also kind of address some of the other broader cultural definitions here. So I wanted to start this cultural view of wolves with something that I found on the internet. I know it's hard to believe you find things on the internet, but on Facebook, Wolf Charmer on Facebook, which I believe is Maureen, as well as Don Gossett, who used to be in Wolf Care with us. Don was a member of the Wolf Care team for several years, had shared this posting called Soul Wolf to those who love wolves and dreamt of becoming one. And I didn't choose it because of the quote. I chose it because of the wolf. This is actually Lucas. His eyes seem like they've been a little bit, maybe a little bit bluer in this image than they were in real life. On the left here is Lucas. That was a photo taken by Monty Sloan from Wolf Park, who happened to be here visiting our wolves and took that photo. And so one of the things that I find is that oftentimes there'll be images of our animals that are out in the public, that are out in Facebook, that are used in other formats. And I think it's always important to recognize, again, when wolves that are in a human-centered environment or in a captive environment are photographed and are used, because again, I want to make sure that people understand that wild wolves oftentimes are not in that close proximity to be able to get some of these close face-up shots. So I also wanted to share with Lucas, every time we have a wolf that passes, we have a member rendezvous, which is a publication that we put together, and the rendezvous has our gone but not forgotten wolves. And every time we choose one phrase, or in some cases one word, that probably triggers the most memories or was most representative of that wolf. And for Lucas, it was those sea green eyes. And so that eyes are really what draws people, and culturally a lot of people associate the look of the wolf as being able to look into your soul. And that's a very common phrase that we hear. Interestingly enough, I found Lucas's photo on another post that wasn't quite respectful, I guess would say, about wolves. This is the same photo of Lucas. And I think it's important that when we talk about cultures, we recognize that for us to be inclusive in cultures, we sometimes need to recognize that others may see the same thing, but with a different lens. And so, again, here's the same image. It has a different meaning for people in this particular group. But I also think it's very important that lens is based on fact. And so this came from a billboard that was up in Washington State. Washington Residents Against Wolves was a LLC, a limited liability corporation. I'm not really sure what their agenda is, other than not being supportive of wolves expanding into Washington State. But again, we want to make sure that people recognize the facts are really the important component to wolf culture. And so the idea that, you know, it's not always one group thinks one way or one group thinks another way. And we talked about that being sweeping generalizations. Sweeping generalizations can be counterproductive. And this was a ethical sportsman group in Wisconsin who funded this billboard, which says real hunters don't kill wolves. And it is, their website is huntersforwolves.org. So oftentimes in the discussion about wolf relationship and how people feel about wolves in the landscape, then there might be rhetoric about hunters being, you know, against wolves. And I think it's important that we look at different ways or different values in which people present themselves and what makes them think the way that they do based on those circumstances. So again, just my point is sweeping generalizations, meaning you can't lump one, you know, group hunters into one group, or you can't lump, you know, politically into one group and think that that's how everyone thinks within that particular group. And I think that's probably the biggest message that I want to portray as we discuss culture. And certainly, again, we want to recognize that today in Minnesota, as well as across many parts of the country, Indigenous Peoples Day, where we celebrate, honor, gather, and learn. And this was actually the logo from the Hennepin County Library organization has put together this logo. And I think it really speaks to everything that we try to do here at the International Wolf Center. Is we really want to be a gathering place. As we know, our symposium is happening later on this week with hundreds of people coming to Minneapolis to share information. We want to celebrate the work that people have done. We want to honor those who have gone before us and had really been a legacy for wolves, and we want to learn. And I think this is appropriate in many ways to recognize the wolf culture. The other thing I really want to make sure that people understand, again, at the Wolf Center, we do really believe that the best teachers are those who show you where to look, but don't tell you what to see. And again, this is an honor of this idea that everyone comes with their own set of values. Everyone comes to the table with their cultural experiences, with how they were raised. And I think it's important for us to be able to recognize that and then be able to, again, enter into the discussion and educate people about wolves. Another fact I think I wanted to add here for Indigenous Peoples Day is that Sophie Tibbetts participated in the final day of the 100-mile Superior, what we call the Superior Hiking Trail, which is very rugged, very rocky, very tough terrain. It's a 100-mile race on September 10th. And she's believed to be the first member of the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior Chippewa to complete this 100-mile Superior race, Superior Hiking Trail race, which started in 1991. And what I'm honored to share is that this was a photo taken by Owen Bream. He's a member of our wolf care team. So he was on logistical support for that race. So the other thing I think is really important to recognize, if you're not aware, Nicole Mann, a member of the Walikee tribe of the Round Valley Reservation in California. It's her first space flight since she became an astronaut in 2013. She's the crew's mission commander for the flight that should have left yesterday. And I apologize, I haven't been near media or TV to know if it did launch. But she is a representative, again, of the first Native American astronaut being able to launch her own crew mission to the space station. So as she quoted, I'm very proud to represent Native Americans and my heritage. I think it's important to celebrate our diversity and also realize how important it is when we collaborate and unite, the incredible accomplishments that we can have. And I think that, to me, is the idea of culture. And I recognize that when we define culture, we have to recognize that people have experiences, childhood experiences that can lead to their thoughts as adults. And I wanted to share this. This is a very special moment for us. We have some Wolf Care members here. This is our former executive director, Walter Medwood. This is Jen Westland, who used to be an employee here, who still does Wolf Care. That's her husband, Matt. And that is Maggie, Maggie, who now works in our retail store. And so who's just thrilled to be a member of the International Wolf Center employees. Can't wait. She just turned 16. Can't wait until she's older that she can participate in Wolf Care. And so I think for me, recognizing that people, again, are shaped by their childhood experiences. And I see that day to day when I, talk to Maggie, and I think about this all the time. I don't think she's even seen this picture, but this was a special day when we were distributing ashes for our wolves that have gone before us. We always cremate the wolves, and we share we spread their ashes in really unique places within the Superior National Forest. Again, it's just something that we've done as a bonding moment for our staff, the people who have cared for these wolves all their lives. And so this was one of those moments when we were spreading ashes. So I've got a little bit of a video clip here, and I wanted to share this with you. Okay, so now, Abby, can you see that? So again, understanding that culture is a treasure that is part of our collective memory, of our perception of ourselves. It is the acquired pair of glasses through which we see life. So it's a call for individuals to agree upon some common values that bind them in harmony. And I think this is it. This is probably the most important part of the wolf world. The more we know about the cultures of others, the more open-minded, tolerant, and global we become. So, like I say, you have an understanding of what culture is and the idea of what culture is, and certainly with the cultural views that we have of wolves, we know that there's a lot of polarized thought about wolves, and we've seen it probably more than we've seen it with any other wildlife species. We certainly know that bears, black bears especially, have a place here in Ely where the Bear Center has visitors that come to the center and have a experience through the window with bears. And yet, when I'm talking to my colleagues that work at the Bear Center, there isn't nearly as much fear as people associate with wolves. And yet, when we look at facts about bear interactions with humans, there's far greater likelihood of bear interactions with humans than there are wolf interactions with humans. So we talk a lot about culture, and I wanted to add my culture. This is me as a kid. I grew up on a farm. Certainly I have a culture that's tied to rural farming. My thought and my father's thought and my grandfather's thought is to be stewards of the land and commitment to the animals. Animals, no matter what they were, they always came first in our family. They always came first in our life, and they were always the priority in our life. And what ends up happening is culture tends to engage like-minded people. And so this is John and Donna Ver. John, who is been a significant supporter of our wolves from the time that he was helping with bottle feeding Aiden and Denali, Grizzer, Maya, and Nisa as well, to helping fund the retirement areas that we cherish today. And John still visits the center on a regular basis now that he's a summer Ely resident, coming every Wednesday to come and see the wolves. And certainly we know that when you have cultural similarities, you have a tendency to be like-minded with people. And the center's culture, the International Wolf Center's culture, is shaped by science-based education with a strong base in research. And this is Dave Meach, who was obviously the founder of the International Wolf Center, significant amount of research done here in the Superior National Forest since the late 60s. Just kind of wrapped up. A lot of field people have come through the Quishway Lab, have come through Ely, and that culture of learning and being immersed in wolf studies here in northern Minnesota has really spread across geography. And even though the geography may change, their mission, their focus, their functions have changed or have remained the same. So two people I wanted to really acknowledge here, and this was from 1989. So if you're not familiar with our operation in 1989, we didn't have a secondary fence. We had a wolf exhibit right next to the building where the public would come right outside. There was no secondary security, so I stayed in the tent with my dog every night. I was actually a tree planter and was working as a curator, but I was planting trees during the day and then coming at night and staying with the wolves at night. And this is Val Asher and Alice Whitelaw. If you're not familiar with Val and Alice, you may be, and you may have experienced that. Val was a speaker at our previous symposium. Val Asher is a biologist. Check out. So Val was a wolf tech here, worked for Dave Meach, volunteered here at the Wolf Center, and really took that experience and that culture of understanding wolves, working with wolves, and trying to educate about wolves, and took that to the Western U.S., where there are significantly different cultural views about wolves than there are in Minnesota, and has been working for the Turner Endangered Species Fund since May of 2000. And Alice Whitelaw, if you do not know Alice, but extremely important work as well. She is a co-founder, and she's down here, Alice Whitelaw, co-founder, director of programs. And this is the Working Dogs for Conservation. And so these dogs work with handlers to identify scat or any kind of samples, especially in critically endangered species in large landscapes where it may not be easy to be able to collar or track or be able to identify where individuals are. So I did, when I was at the symposium in 2005 in Colorado, we actually had Alice's group out doing a demonstration, a field demonstration, to see just how incredibly valuable these dogs can be on the landscape to be able to help, again, identify, inventory critical endangered species. So with that said, the function, or another thing that you may not know about Val and Alice, is that they were working as the kind of the pre-trapping, pre-collaring team prior to the Yellowstone reintroduction. So this is Val and Alice putting radio collars on so that when they came to do the Yellowstone reintroduction in 1995, they're able to identify where groups of wolves were, packs of wolves were, to be able to, again, have a better sense of getting family groups into the Yellowstone introduction. That was kind of the main idea behind that. So if you've not, again, seen this clip, and I'm gonna play it, but I'll have to stop sharing my screen. But there's a great clip on that was done on Val called The True Wild. The wolf biologist studies lobos on the Ted Turner Flying D Ranch.
The impact of gray wolves on the Flying D bison operation is insignificant. Indeed, the impact of gray wolves on the Flying D's big game hunting operation is insignificant. We have a stunning example that coexisting with gray wolves is a relatively straightforward affair that requires only a modicum of accommodation. Now, why does that matter? Wolf recovery has always been hamstrung by one simple thing. Wolf recovery is hamstrung by the mythical wolf. This belief that the wolf has a supernatural ability to exercise its predatory will on a whim. Nothing could be further from the truth.
If anything, they're just curious cowards. I've been surrounded by a bunch of wolves. Once they realized I was a person, they basically peed on themselves to get out of the, get out of there. They're not as mystical as people think. I mean, I guess that's where I should go with this, is that they're not that mystical. They don't float, they're not godly, and I don't think they're ruthless killers. They're just another animal, and I think we throw these perceptions, and some people are just like either really love them or they really hate them. It's a very polarized species. I like them. Not gonna say I really love them. Not gonna say I really hate them. I like them. To me, they represent wildness. Okay, so.
All right. So that was Val, and if you get a chance, you can search it on YouTube. Again, True Wild, a wolf biologist. You'll find it to be able to watch the entire segment. Again, I feel personally, all of these people that I'm kind of encountering here, all kind of started here in northern Minnesota, and I really want to make sure that you see the influence of how one place can make so many connections. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I feel about culture, is it is about connections. It's about gatherings, it's about people, it's about learning from each other, and then being able to share that with everyone. So it is Wolf Awareness Week. Wolf Awareness Week was started in 1990 with Wisconsin Governor Tommy Thompson signed the proclamation of Wisconsin Wolf Awareness Week. And by the way, Tommy Thompson, if those Wisconsinites know, was a Republican governor. And so again, this doesn't have to be partisan. This doesn't have to be one political party likes wolves, the other political party doesn't. To celebrate the importance of these animals by highlighting the threats to their survival, spreading the word about what you can do to help wolves stay protected, and helping humans learn to live alongside them. The Timberwolf Alliance is kind of the leader in the tradition of that 1990 signing of Wolf Awareness Week. Northland College, if you get a chance to look at Wolf Awareness Week in Northland College, you can order this poster, which is a beautiful poster, and you'll see at the bottom of the poster, the Wolf Center, Red River Zoo, Red Wolf Coalition, with Seacrest, we've got again Timberwolf Alliance, Wolf Park is part of that Wildlife Science Center. These are all players, and I apologize, I can't. Wolf Hollow is the other player that is part of this consortium of people who support wolf education and wolf awareness. And it's not just in Minnesota. So this idea of wolf education, wolf awareness, and the backside of the poster, I do want to kind of highlight that wolf range and native lands are represented on the poster, showing the red and what people are terming the eastern wolf former range, the red or the eastern wolf current range, which is significantly small. It's really red wolf presence. There is still some research about eastern wolves, and if this is probably not the presentation to be able to deal with that, but if you do get a chance to really look into the conservation idea about eastern wolves up in Canadian, like Algonquin Provincial Park, and the eastern Canadian provinces, there's some belief that that wolf, which we consider Lycoan subspecies, taxonomy, or the taxonomy of that subspecies still considers it Canis lupus lycoan, but the reality is there's some research that may be coming out in the next 5 to 10 years that really does separate that out as a separate wolf, and that's kind of been discussions. You see gray wolf, again, former range, and that darker gray, the lighter gray is occupied range. So you can see here pockets of the Mexican wolf, pockets of wolves that have come from the Rocky Mountains into Washington, into Oregon, into California, northern Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin. Northern Minnesota's always had wolves in our lower 48 states. The model that, or the poster that you're seeing here, gives that population information available as part of the educational delivery for Wolf Awareness Week. And so again, Wolf Awareness Week is also a national endeavor. National Wolf Awareness Week in 1996, Defenders of Wildlife established every third week of October as National Wolf Awareness. So 1990, Wisconsin took the lead of wolf awareness, and 1996, the defenders expanded it to a national level of awareness. And I wanted to share a few things. I really think artistic expression symbolizes cultural connections. We had the honor in 1990 to work with Bev Doolittle on what was called the Sacred Circle painting. And so this was done at the Wolf Center, just to give you an idea of how small our enclosures used to be. This was the first wolf exhibit in 1989. And actually this is 1990. So in 89, they were just pups. And then they went back to my place in 1990, they came back to the center, extremely small. And that's where my tent used to be, is right in the back there. And so we did wolf education here at the center, and Bev came to Ely and experienced not only our work here at the center, but also we took her out radio tracking and howling, and did some examples to be the inspiration of that Sacred Circle painting that was done. And the other thing that we recognize is that there are organizations that are looking at wolves' history and culture. And so this is one, if you've not had a chance to check it out, this is Wolves' History and Culture from the Rocky Mountain Wolf Quest. Verbal language to share stories, customs, rituals, and legends through vivid narratives. So they basically have ideas or perceptions, and really delve into, why do some people see wolves as a scary and dangerous threat to people? Where do those perceptions come from? What's influenced, people's own perceptions? And then what stories have they shared? So if you want to go to that Rocky Mountain website, I'm not going to go there because it'll require another screen share, but you can just type that in and take a look at it. What I did do was pull Doug Smith's narrative out of that website to give you a wildlife biologist insight on wolves' history and culture. And so I'm going to share that with you now.
From all of your studies, is there anything besides human-caused mortality that has ever made the gray wolf endangered?
I can't think any. I mean, we're pretty much the ones who did it. Yeah.
Just kill them.
I mean, they don't do it to each other. And even humans pre-technology, before guns, traps, steel, and poison, Aboriginal peoples really didn't make it. They killed them. But they didn't really make a dent on them at all.
Yeah. So why in the last 200, 300 years, why did Americans kill hundreds of thousands of wolves?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, there is a simple answer. I mean, I would like to think it's not philosophical, but the short answer is civilization. Wolves and people are actually pretty similar. We want the same things, I should say. We're both big killers, and wolves were, Aboriginal people, bison, were all here first. And then, and it's mostly European humans advanced across North America. We did market hunting, and, market hunting's killing wild ungulates like elk and deer and bison. And bison had a special story, but, we pretty much took all those animals out for various reasons. For food, because it was abundant. We didn't think we could, because that was an economy that the Indians had, and we wanted to move the Indians out as well. And so when all that natural food for wolves got moved out, they didn't really have much to eat. And behind the wolves came settlers, colonists. I'm not taking sides here, but they brought with them cows. And cows are domesticated wild game. Animal husbandry made them easy to live with. And what makes them easy to live with is you take out all the prickly, gnarly things that make them, able to defend themselves against wolves. And with their natural prey base gone, and we brought in all these cows who were kind of defenseless and dependent upon the cowboy, the 30-30 toting cowboy, the wolves had to go, because the livestock, the cows are easy game, easy prey, and the natural prey was gone. And so this gave wolves a very, very evil image, because they did prey on that livestock because they had no choice.
Yeah.
And, when you're a settler coming across the country and it's a howling wilderness, and the winters are hard and the summers are hot, and you know you have a family to feed. Those wolves you painted as devil dogs, bad.
Yes. Yeah.
And you know the wolves are doing what they needed to do. The people, you know, did what they needed to do, and that's the story of life and civilization. It's just that the wolves lost out, and now we're in a position to say, you know, nature has naturalness, pristineness, whatever you want to call it. We need to come to grips with that history, and now we're trying to recreate or restore some of that because that might not have been the best viewpoint or way to go through the world. And so I think that's what we're trying to do now. Something that's not realistic.
Yeah, they're just, you know, there's a fair bit of good science I've been studying lately that makes the case that gray wolves were the first domesticated animal. That back 2,000, 10,000, 15,000 years ago, gray wolves and Aboriginal peoples had a very symbiotic, very collegial, very beneficial relationship. Wolves were part of some small groups of hunter-gatherers. And while it takes a long time to go from a gray wolf to a Chihuahua, they clearly were domesticated in every sense that mattered. And then, of course, that relationship was lost, especially in this country, as the United States was overrun with European settlers in the 17 and 1800s. And then, of course, the rest is history.
So you kind of get the sense of what we, you know, say as going to be a perception of the life and the relationship with wolves. So if you're a hunter-gatherer, you might have a different perception on emulating the wolf, on finding that that wolf is what I consider to be, you know, something to mirror, something to learn from, something to, you know, get tips on how to be a better predator. But if you're grazing cattle and those wolves take your cattle, your perspective is going to be different. It's a different lens, it's a different focus, and certainly that can influence them. So we also have something to share, the meaning of the wolf. This was from Fox 9 News and Wolf Week, meaning of the wolf in the Native American culture here. I would, hopefully some of you might recognize this face. This is Bolts, one of our wolves from 2012 litter who passed away in 2020. And oftentimes I see clips and I see images, whether they be on Facebook or whether they be on YouTube of our wolves, and it always you know, makes again me remember all of their contributions that they have made. So this is Wolf Week, and
it is 7:33 right now. This morning we continue our Fox 9 series. It's called Wolf Week, and the wolf is a powerful symbol of who we are as Minnesotans, but the symbolism is largely borrowed from those who lived here before us.
M.A. Roscoe takes us to the American Indian Center in Minneapolis to find out why Mayangan, or wolf, means in Native American culture.
Wolves represent strength, intelligence, and leadership, traits Native Americans have revered for centuries.
The fact is, wolves figure prominently in the mythology of just about every Native American tribe. We came here to the Minneapolis American Indian Center to find out why.
We got a corridor with sunny side up eggs.
Austin Bartold is the head chef here at Gatherings Cafe, which is open to the public, by the way. But the legend of the wolf suffuses everything you do here. Tell me about that.
So the wolf in our culture, Mayangan, is a leader in the whole animal kingdom in North America here. So they provide for other animals throughout the harsh times, throughout the spring, summer, fall, winter, and what they do is they go out there and they kill the big prey, but they only take what they need, and then they leave the rest for other animals to come through so they can survive.
And like the wolves, elders eat first.
Elders do eat first. We always take care of our elders and our children first.
We see the wolf in imagery in Ojibwe and other Native American tribes over and over again, whether it's in artwork, beading. What does it mean? What does it symbolize?
So Mayangan, which is the wolf.
In Ojibwe.
In Ojibwe, so it could like this could be Mayangan Dudem, which is from the wolf clan. But the wolf is a protector. and a protector of even around their own territory, around their land, but also they are the wisdom individuals.
Isn't there a saying that the way the wolves go or how they do, that's how Native Americans will do, or all of us will do?
Yes.
How does it go?
So basically, whatever the wolf does, and we'll see, and we will follow their foot tracks, their imprints. They'll go out and they'll hunt, but they stay as a family. And that family is very, very strong. And there's always the alpha. You got the middle people, are individuals. You got the pups. You got moms, and so that's almost how the Native community works. Is you got the elders, you got the middle people, you got the youngins, but we all work together as a family. And that's what the wolves they represent the protectiveness, the wisdom, the knowledge to pass on to the next coming.
Let's end with a howl. Some tribes believe that timber wolves howling at the moon were spiritual beings who could communicate with the gods and impart special powers. If you've ever heard one camping in the wilds of Minnesota, you'd probably agree. Back to you. Heard one camping in the wilds of Minnesota, you'd probably.
So I also
call
wanted
these
to
things
share,
beings.
this was a presentation that the Wolf Center aired on Monday, and this was Tanya Aldred, who works for the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission as a wolf biologist. And there are several different wolf research projects going on within the Anishinaabe people here in Minnesota. So the Fond du Lac Reservation is doing wolf monitoring, 1854 Treaty Authority, Grand Portage. We also have Mille Lacs Lake just started a wolf project. So the relationship of the wolf is not only spiritual, not only cultural, but also biologically supported through population studies to be able to understand the wolf on the landscape. So this is Tanya, and I'm just going to share a short clip of her presentation that was aired at the Wolf Center on October 3rd.
We talk about these relationships that we have. And so specifically with the wolf, you know, I'd like to talk first about the relationship that maybe some of you have heard, maybe some of you haven't, the relationship that the Ojibwe have, the Anishinaabe, also known as original man, the Ojibwe have with Mayingan, the wolf. And it started where we have a lot of these stories that come out, and it relates, I realize it all relates to the science that I've been learning. And then it made sense of these stories, how they come about. And it was a really beautiful way to see that develop. And some of you may have heard that we call him our brother. Well, that's how the Ojibwe see them. And, you know, we've walked a path together for a long time, and the Creator put man on earth, and he became very lonely. So the Great Spirit, or the Creator, put the wolf there to be a partner to travel with the human on the planet and the earth. He also gave them a job to do, which I can't imagine, to go and name all the places together. So after a very long time of walking the earth together, naming all these places and beings, they developed a respect and a relationship for each other. So and also what many people have heard, what happens to one will happen to the other. And they would have to eventually separate and walk their own paths on the earth, but they always have that bond and that connection. And I think that is just such a beautiful way to look at things. Coming into, you know, another thing I wanted to talk about was the 4 orders. So going through school, which is why I talked about school quite a bit, is that we learned this Western science way of thinking. And the way I can see it is that man's at the top, and then we kind of rule over everything else. And I couldn't figure out why that bothered me so much, where I wasn't taught that way. I was taught to respect these things, that I always looked at it that my job wasn't to decide these rules and management plans and everything and have dominion over these beings, but rather my job was to take care of these beings, because literally they take care of us. And starting with the first order are the rocks, the air, the, fire and water. Everything on this planet needs those things. And, with the second order, you have the plants. They need all the other things. They need a place to grow. They need water. They need oxygen and air. And some plants we know work well with fire, and they reproduce. And blueberries, jack pine, and so moss, lichens, fungi, then you get to the third order, which are all the animal beings. So those include all the birds, carnivores, herbivores, all those. The fourth order are humans. Each one depends on the one above it, and we depend on all of them. So, for people who are just vegetarians, and that's okay. I'm not myself, but I've definitely loved deer, and I've getting into wildlife biology, and having this, I felt so many years broken and disconnected from that, of what I learned in school versus what I learned from my culture.
And I think one of the things I would like to share, and it relates a lot to what Tanya had said, is that we have a tendency to think in Western science, the dominance idea, and even if you talk to people who are dog owners, and the school of thought of the alpha, and even Dave Meach, who used that term early on in his research, said, you know what, that's really not appropriate. Alpha meaning domineering, controlling things out of physical dominance, versus respect, the relationship that individuals have. Again, a wolf pack in the wild is family, their previous offspring, new offspring. So there is a difference, and I appreciate what Tanya said. I really appreciate sharing that with you on a daily basis. If you watch the pack that we have here at the International Wolf Center, you'll see those relationships forming, as we have Blackstone and Kaz, who turned 6 months of age on October 6th, seeing them try to find their way and try to find alliances and try to find the bond that will be their pack life. And then Luna on the right, demonstrating what a means to be a little bit domineering. And certainly we do see females have a little bit more domineering personalities, and you might be picking that up on Rika a little bit. So again, the seven, just to share, the 7 Ojibwe Anishinaabe reservations in Minnesota: Bois Fort, which is just near us, only 20 miles from us; Fond du Lac, Band of Chippewa; the Grand Portage, which is up towards Thunder Bay; Leech Lake, Mille Lacs, White Earth, and Red Lake, all participating in wolf studies and wolf monitoring. If you get a chance to research some of those, you really get a connection, not just of, again, the cultural relationships they have wolves, but also their desire to see them survive and thrive within their landscape. As a matter of fact, White Earth passed legislation in the first wolf hunt that wolves were not allowed to be killed on the White Earth Reservation when there was hunting going on throughout Minnesota. So there are some significant cultural relationships. And previously there was some reference to the clans of the Oneida, of relationships of indigenous people, Oneida people, which are familiar, you might be familiar with the Oneida people in Wisconsin. The Wolf Clan represents the pathfinders. Their responsibility is to guide the people in living their lives in the way the Creator intended. And so there are several clans in the Oneida people. Turtle, Bear, and Wolf are the typical clans. And again, the Oneida is a league of Iroquois, and you'll see Confederacy of Seneca, Cayuga, Onondaga, Oneida, Mohawk, and they're based on this mutual non-aggression kind of relationship. So spiritual, social, economic, political life, they're all interwoven, and it is a maternal matrilineal society. So it's the relationship of the mothers are inherited, clan relationships are inherited from the mothers in that particular society. Another one that you might be familiar with, and again, a lot of science and a lot of discussion about wolf clans comes from the Southeast. You might be familiar with them to learn as the Creeks or Creek. Muskogee is another name, the indigenous people traditionally from the southeastern United States. Interestingly enough, I have the original range of the gray wolf population where we're finding Oklahoma, Georgia, where Muskogee tribes are typically located. That's not so much gray wolf range as it is red wolf range. And so again, the Red Wolf Coalition, and I think Kim Wheeler is on this this webinar, and she will be presenting at the International Wolf Symposium here in a few short days. But North Carolina, the current and historical range, if you look at historical in that area, Muskogee clans landscapes is where the red wolf historically ranged, and now the current range is just again in North Carolina in Alligator River National Wildlife Refuge. And so I wanted to share Eno and Ellerby, both 4 years old, I believe, are on their way to Kim's at the Red Wolf Center in Columbia, and they were part of the Species Survival Program, if you have not been following that move. So another tribe, again, ceremonial dance, the Tonkawa tribe in northern Oklahoma, the tribal reserve, would commemorate the origin or the creation, would tell the story of creation through interpretive dance and the wolf dance, as well as the idea of demonstrating not only their dancing skills, but they had the opportunity to bring this to the Shawnee Public Schools just recently, and I wanted to share that. So wolf dance was brought to the students at the Shawnee Public Schools, and again, the importance of kids being able to maybe experience something that they may not have in their family culture, maybe not available to them in any other kind of format. So I think it's really important for the educational connection that we see to be able to share that with kids. So again, the Wolf Spirit Dance Troupe traveled to schools to be able to deliver that. The idea that the same kind of concept of celebrate, honor, and learn and gather, but one thing that has also been important is healing. This is an Alaskan tribe where a wolf totem was raised kind of as a ceremonial response to the challenges that have faced many indigenous cultures in how, I guess I would say, the misunderstanding about cultures, the misunderstanding, and certainly as we've dealt with in the last probably 6 to 8 months, the knowledge, especially in Canadian schools as well as US schools, that would try to reduce people's ability to share their culture and to live their culture. And so oftentimes the clan dance totems can not only be used to celebrate, honor, learn, and gather, but also as healing in circumstance. So, and as we go forward here, the relationship between European and colonists and wolves were quite different. In 1657, New Haven, Connecticut, there were 5 pounds to anyone who could kill one great black wolf of more than an ordinary bigness, which is like to be more fierce and more bold than the rest. And so black wolves were targeted, obviously were feared. Agrarian cultures are cultures that favor livestock on the landscape versus, and obviously the direct conflict that wolves have with livestock is preying upon livestock. And as Doug Smith alluded, that was probably the the lens that they viewed wolves was quite a bit different than a hunter-gatherer society that views wolves for their skills and their abilities. And I wanted to share another, I think I'm kind of running out of time, but Erin Stoller, a biological science technician at Yellowstone National Park. She was an intern here at the Wolf Center several years ago before she went to Yellowstone. And in Yellowstone, there was research that was able to identify the link between coat color, reproduction, and survival. And so we saw some research, whereas, the early idea, again, the early kind of cultural view was that black wolves were more dangerous, black wolves were more aggressive. Research in Yellowstone has shown black wolves have a greater survivorship during distemper outbreaks, that there's something to be said about their immune function, in addition to causing black coat color, suggesting that they have an additional role in pathogen defense, so that they're maybe healthier. Another study found gray wolves to be more aggressive than black colored wolves during territorial conflicts, and that was a Yellowstone study. This happens to be Rika in the middle of a Blackstone sandwich. During the breeding season, there's also greater mate choice between opposite colored males and females compared to the same colored pairs. This data suggests fitness trade-offs between gray and black coats, color evidence of the maintenance of the black coat color in the population. So where myth talks about aggression with wolves, science has actually studied that and has actually not seen that to be the case. So one thing I always think is important to look at the war on wolves, the Americans campaign to eradicate the wolf. PBS streaming has got some, and Nature series has done some really in-depth historical look at the perception of culture. So again, wolves being feared, wolves being hated, wolves being persecuted in North America, European ideas, agrarian society, kind of painting this picture that the wolf needed to be eradicated. So if you get a chance, another real valuable resource to be able to kind of take a look at. And the one, The Wolf That Changed America, the whole concept of this bounty hunter that traveled across the canyons of New Mexico to be able to get this one wolf they call the Lobo wolf. And certainly they entitle it The Wolf That Changed America, this idea about looking at wolves in the landscape. And some of the early research, if you look at, Aldo Leopold, I mean, the whole idea of, think like a mountain, just the difference of people who we now consider to be very strong supporters of the ecological world started with this mentality about eradication of wolves. So with that said, we always want to look at how are the current perceptions of wolves influenced by myth, by folklore, by media. And we do have one more webinar this month, and this is kind of a preview. And I saw this the other day, actually. I was kind of surprised about it, but it's a TV ad that's being run right now. This is a flow zone ad. I thought we were beyond this in cultural discussions, but here we are.
Don't mind me, I'm just the flu. I'm quite harmless, really. And when people ask, but aren't you linked to dangerous flu complications like pneumonia, heart attack, and hospitalizations? I just say, but I'm just the flu. It's him. Who? I'm just the flu.
Fight the flu with Sanofi flu vaccines, which help prevent flu in older adults. They've even been shown to provide better protection from flu-related complications compared to standard dose flu shots.
Don't get Fluzone high-dose quadrivalent if you've had a severe allergic reaction to its components, including egg products, or after previous dose of flu vaccine. Don't get Flu-Block quadrivalent if you've had a severe allergic reaction to its components. Tell your healthcare professional if you've had severe muscle weakness after a flu shot. People with weakened immune systems may have a lower vaccine response.
This flu season, you do have a choice. Choose the protection of a Sanofi flu vaccine. Ask your pharmacist or doctor which Sanofi flu vaccine is right for you.
All right, so that is kind of a precursor to the last webinar that we're going to do on Halloween, October 31st, not the last webinar, but our next webinar. And I was surprised when I saw that. I just, like I said, we really thought that media was using better judgment in casting negative views of wildlife. And so not saying anything about Flonase, I don't really know. I don't really get the flu. When you work around a lot of carcasses and you have an immune system that can withstand pretty much Armageddon, you don't really use a lot of the products, but certainly I was quite surprised at that. So like I said, that's a preview of the October 31st webinar. We are going to have one that's myths and folklore of wolves, and we'll try to, again, share with you some of the ways that wolves are portrayed in the media, and wolves have portrayed in more of the European folklore rather than the native culture. So with that said, Abby, are there any questions that I kind of missed as I go through here? I'm going to stop sharing and go back to, I'm going to go see what the boys are doing.
I didn't see any other questions. I think we're pretty much good on that front.
Right. Well, then I'll kind of wrap up, and fall colors are in their final stages. I would say this weekend we're supposed to get temperatures of a high of the 40s. It's right now over 50 some degrees. Tomorrow's supposed to be 70, extremely warm for wolves, but we will see when temperatures get into the 40s and we get some wind, we're going to start losing a lot of leaves here. So it's beautiful if you get a chance to see them. We, like I said, have been kind of seeing the wolves on this warmer weather, just kind of go up and hang out and find a cool spot to rest, and probably will get up around 6 or 7 o'clock. Oh, there they are. So that would be on the north camera right now on explore.org. If you're watching that camera, you'll see them there. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you October 31st for the next webinar.